It's been almost a year since we got our last altered character in Tower of Fantasy, and we all know by now every time we get an altered character, it's going to be good. This time, Nola is no exception. From the beach episode version PV to the brand new endgame content interactive dorm feature, Nola is already a must-pull regardless of the meta. But how strong is she exactly, and what unique things did the devs cook up this time? Let's jump right in and find out. Nola's weapon, Rumble, is the first weapon in ToF that can freely switch elements through the skills menu before entering battle. Different elements have completely different effects. Because of the ability to switch elements, Nola can find a place in any elemental team, whether as support or DPS. So both new and old players should choose to pull Nola to add to their lineup, since pulling for her is like pulling for 5 weapons at once. However, this makes her very complex as she has a different kit for each elemental team, but that's where I come in with this video. Let's start with the basics, her weapon passives. Nola, unlike the previous altered character Nyan, who was still an altered character at its core, actually just straight up becomes whatever element you select her to be. She gets Armor Dissolve when she's physical or flame, and Force Impact when she's frost or vault, and when she's altered, she just does the basic altered weapon effect. This is also the same case with the weapon's resonance, getting whichever resonance you selected her to be. For the damaging passive that all characters get after Domain 9, Nola's also changes based on her element selection. For Altered, Flame, and Vault, she gets the on-field passive, doing extra damage when she's the active weapon, indicating that she should be the main DPS for these elements, and for Frost and Physical, she gets the Swift Cut passive, indicating that she should have a more background playstyle. Since these are all the same as previous weapons, I won't be talking about them here for much. Moving on to the exclusive passives, yes, there's still a bit more for some of the elements. For Altered, she gets an exclusive 50% elemental damage bonus when you equip 3 altered weapons. For Flame, she gets Overheat, a stackable Sparks passive that stacks up every time you summon an object up to 8 stacks. You also gain 8 stacks of sparks upon entering battle, with each layer restoring 8% of her max HP. However, no HP is restored if sparks are maxed. How do you consume these stacks? We'll find out later in her kit. For Frost, she gets Liquid Nitrogen, which increases final damage upon entering battle for 30 seconds only, removed after using the Flashrider's second skill, with a cooldown of 150 seconds, basically smoothing out her initial damage while you're setting up her buffs. Also, she gets some survivability in the form of a 20% reduction in damage taken when she has a shield, cause why not? Vault and Physical don't have any additional exclusive passives, as one element is already good without any and the other is dead, but I'll let you figure that one out yourself. Moving on to her movesets. Her normal attack page has a ridiculous 7 different attacks that she can do. Ground attacks, aerial attacks, and 5 different hold attacks depending on timing, with 2 being aerial plunges, 1 for horizontal movement where you just straight up hold attack in the air, and the other for vertical movement if you add an extra attack before you start holding. Only the ground combo is her bread and butter when using her as a main DPS, however. Although her multipliers aren't great here, the damage is all in the passive effects when comboing with Twin Slashes and Link Slashes when expending overload stacks. The key to performing this combo consistently during her Superspeed Mode is to hold your attack button the moment you see the bike charge forward on the 5th basic attack hit. This allows you to stack just enough overload stacks to fully trigger her passive damage every time. Remember this, as this is important for later when we talk about the different playstyles for each element. Her dodge attacks, be it directional or not, are both pretty cool looking, but unfortunately irrelevant in the meta. What is important though is her directional dodge hold, that allows you to actually ride her motorcycle at the cost of stamina. This is faster than regular mounts, and you can go even faster if you jump, as you get a short speed boost when you land at the cost of more stamina. The most important part, Nola's motorcycle deals damage too. Further riding the motorcycle in the open world for over 10 seconds allows it to execute all enemies except for world bosses. Open world elites too strong? Just run them over. Nola's Discharge skill is as usual pretty irrelevant, just the usual do damage and get some iframes. No extra effects at all, but at least the cool motorcycle slash move is really satisfying to watch, I guess. You get what I mean. Simple talk over, now for the essay in her skill description. Using her skill, Explosive Energy deals damage and applies a 3-second slow effect to nearby targets while granting iframes during the animation. You then go into Superspeed Mode, which gives Hyper Body some additional damage on her basic attacks that count as passive damage, and a Stacking Overload passive, each hit with a built-in 0.65 second internal cooldown at a max stack of 6. 5 seconds into Super Speed, you gain a second skill, Flashrider, that will end Super Speed when cast while dealing 1600% multiplier damage. This second skill, however, won't be available if you switch to another weapon and back again. For the cooldown of her skill and the duration of Super Speed, it's all different depending on the element selection, as different teams have different rotation timings that I will explain now, starting with the easiest element, Physical. Nola's physical skill is dead simple. Activate her skill to enter Super Speed, to start dealing AoE damage every second while also granting a shield equal to 5% max HP per target hit, up to 10% per hit, lasting a total of 10 seconds. This shield can stack up to a maximum of 50% of your player's HP. Super Speed lasts 19 seconds with a 21-second cooldown, unaffected by cooldown reduction or resets. So basically, in a physical rotation, all you do is activate Nola's skill, then on hit, switch to your second buffer like Asuka's skill, then immediately switch to your main DPS physical weapon to do damage, and that's it. That was simple, right? Now on to Frost. Nola's Frost skill provides 28 seconds of super speed and has a cooldown of 30 seconds and can't be reset or reduced like usual. During this time, when you land basic attacks or receive healing, you will get thermal convergence stacks up to 10. The stacks will expire 3 seconds after super speed ends, and that's it to her skill description. You might be confused here, wondering what the hell does this ability even do, and that's because the rest of the description for Frost is in her second skill cast down below. This makes the second skill mandatory for Frost teams. After casting Flashrider, she will consume all her stacks and give some Frost damage boost per stack. Also, you get an AoE dot damage passive for 30 seconds that also scales based on how many stacks were consumed. So, to use Nola in a Frost team, you want to activate Nola's skill, then spam basic attacks to stack her passive up to 10, then release Flashrider immediately when she's able to after 5 seconds, but make sure you're at 10 stacks for maximum damage. Then, you switch to another weapon to buff, and finally discharge into Roslyn for main DPS. Moving on to Flame, Nola's Flame skill is quite similar to her physical skill, but with some added complexity. When activating her skill and entering Super Speed Mode, she also consumes all her spark stacks from her Overheat weapon passive explained earlier. Each consumed stack will grant a flame attack boost and final damage boost for her weapon only, maxing out at 8 stacks. In Super Speed, she will also deal AoE damage just like the physical skill, but it's every 2 seconds and only triggers off of flame damage hits. Flame Super Speed lasts 23 seconds with a 25-second cooldown, also unaffected by cooldown, reduction, or refresh. So, for a Flame team rotation, to fully utilize Nola's buffs, you want to start with a buffer like Plotty Discharge, then switch to Nola. Use her skill to consume her initial free 8 sparks from her passive, then use the other buffer like GU to discharge. Then, switch to Plotty to skill and summon her mirrors and get 8 more sparks. Then finally you go back to Nola and spam her best DPS basic attack hold combo. When her skill cooldown resets, you want the skill again to consume your sparks and continue with the DPS combo on Nola. Finally, when Plotty's mirror passive is about to expire, you want to then switch to Plotty to refresh her mirror passive with her skill, then dodge attack to reduce her skill's cooldown to align with Nola's skill duration, shoot a few times, wait for Nola's switch cooldown, then back to Nola and main DPS, and then rotate. If all that sounds way too complicated for you, you can just use Nola as a buffer instead. Start with her skill, then discharge into GU, then discharge into Plotty skill, dodge attack, and start blasting. When you're done, discharge back to Nola, skill, then back to Plotty Pew Pew just like the previous Flame comp. Finally, for Nola's Vault skill, you get 18 seconds of super speed with a 20-second cooldown, again unaffected by resets or reductions. And during super speed, you get a Vault damage buff, and that's it to her background buffing capabilities. The rest is all for when Nola is on the field actively doing DPS. Every basic attack hit will stack her Thunderclap passive up to 18. Once you reach 18, they all get consumed to do a significant amount of skill damage to nearby targets. You also get a 10-second shield worth 30% of your max HP that cannot stack. Also, this Thunderclap additional damage can trigger a maximum of 5 times for the entire duration of Super Speed. Finally, there's also an additional burst of skill damage triggered by consuming all 6 stacks of Overload using linked slashes. Remember the basic attack combo hold thing explained earlier? This kind of forces Nola into a main DPS role and main DPS role only for Vault, unless you want to cope with the minuscule Vault damage increase from her skill and use someone else as main DPS. So the basics of using Nola for Vault is just buff with 2 other weapons, then switch to Nola, use her skill, and spam the basic attack combo explained previously, where you attack until the 5th motorcycle hit charge animation, then hold attack to auto combo into her linked slashes, popping exactly 6 overload stacks for maximum damage. Rotate, rebuff, rinse and repeat. Oh right, there's also an Altered team. For Nola's Altered skill, she gets 23 seconds of super speed, with a 25-second cooldown. During this time, you get to double your HP, perfect to trigger Fiona's Wellspring HP requirement. You also end up dealing additional HP damage on your ground and aerial basic attacks that count as skill damage. Ground ones are preferred, obviously. This damage can't be buffed, unfortunately, and is also capped at 30 times your attack stats. Altered also gets an enhanced Flashrider second skill, where you end up doing a huge multiplier worth of max HP damage as skill damage, although unfortunately it also can't be buffed and is capped at 1000 times your attack stat. So in order to maximize the triple Altered team's damage, you should go for as much attack as possible on Matrices, and maybe put crit damage Matrices on Nola, who will be the main DPS, as crit and crit damage does work in buffing the damage of Altered Nola. To play the Altered team, you want to pre-buff with Fiona and Nyan, or even the newly synesthesia'd Lyn, then switch to Nola, use her skill, and spam basic attacks. This time, however, you don't want to do the full basic attack combo for Nola, as you don't want to go into the twin and linked slashes since they don't provide extra HP damage. You still hold during the motorcycle charge 5th hit, so you can combo straight into the next basic attack, but instead of continuing to hold, you start spamming again to continue doing the ground combo. If you see her fling her motorcycle forward, you're doing something wrong basically. It's kinda hard to do, but keep practicing and you'll get it eventually. Or you can just spam click and throw her motorcycle doing the full combo for a DPS loss. It ain't that serious. Finally, at the end of super speed duration, which can be figured out with the indicator on the bottom right, you want to cast Flashrider to do your massive HP damage nuke and rinse and repeat. Now the skill segment is finally over, let's talk about her stars. Her 1 star is a buff to her basic attack additional damage multiplier when in super speed mode after casting her skill. It provides barely any damage increase when using Nola as a main DPS, and is completely useless when she's being used as a background support weapon. Her 3 star ignores 15% of all resistances up to the universal team cap of 50% per element, and also provides a 60-second cooldown cheat death effect. Pretty amazing star for global, as the resistance ignore stat is cut in half compared to CN, while the cap remained the same. For 3 star, you also get the additional benefit of being able to unlock additional dorm interactions on top of her A3 3-star skin. So 3 star is a must have if you're that type of player. Her 5 star recovers 6% max HP per second for 10 seconds after using her skill, totaling 60% HP recovered, but the healing effect will be removed early if super speed ends early in the case of using Flashrider 5 seconds in, like in the Frost rotation. Basically, it's just a survival star. Finally, her 6 star is just a very straightforward increase your final damage by 30%, which applies to all weapons obviously. Perfect whale bait for those competing for leaderboards. So for those of you that are still clueless, Nola's stopping points are at stars 0, 3, and 6. For her Matrices, the 2-piece set provides a massive attack boost and a buff to her 6-stack overload passive damage, but unfortunately both effects only work when her weapon is equipped, making the 2-piece set worthless when Nola gets rotated out of the meta in less than a year. The 4-piece set provides a generic elemental damage bonus and then some more elemental damage bonus after casting her skill and going into super speed mode, the first part being universal. These Matrices are a slap in the face for those free-to-play trying to run 2+2 Altered, since they move the universal effect from 2-piece to 4-piece, so for those short on resources, these Matrices can be safely skipped as you wait for your own elemental Matrices instead. Although it can be argued that it's still worth going for, as Nola works on all elements and can help you unlock all elemental teams for those branching out from their main element. Decide for yourself, I guess. For Nola's Simulacra trait, you get the standard 18% damage, a 30-second HP shield after casting her skill, and an additional attack boost for each altered weapon you equip, making it the go-to trait for the tripled altered team, but that's about it. For all other elements, you should use your respective meta trait, whatever it should be. If you need a refresher, go watch the kit video for your other characters in the playlist linked in the description below. For relic selection, again, use the meta relics for your element and refer to the other kit video. Finally, for alternative weapons and matrices, again, refer to the other kit videos. And that's it for the video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more character kit videos, and let me know in the comments what star you're going to pull for Nola. Oh, and if you're looking for team comps and rotations, I've attached the full Kecta's rotation for each element's meta CN comp at the end of this video, done on my account by Mr. Low Ping CN Pilot, so there's definitely no skill issues there and it's safe to watch and learn from. Just know that global meta is probably different for some elements, so do try out other weapons and rotations too. Nola, being an altered character, is pretty much a must pull for every player, be it new, returning, or day one players, giving power creep to all meta teams and at the same time also power creeping mounts, and providing new players a free execute for elites in the open world. Pulling for Nola is like pulling for 5 weapons at once. You will definitely regret it if you skip her, not to mention her 2 other massive assets. I mean the gigantic sword and her cool looking motorcycle, of course. With the banner of Toph slowing down to 5 to 6 weeks per character, everyone should be pulling Nola to A3 or even A6, as she won't get benched anytime soon, knowing that the next altered is at least 10 months later if the trend continues. Also, there's additional interactions to Dorm at A3, so good luck and go get that Nola.